Madam Speaker, the Liberals' wasteful spending continues. The $4 billion Canada Digital Adoption Program has a stream called Boost Your Business. And the government has given a contract to an organization, Magnet, in order to oversee placing more than 16,000 students in jobs. As of October 3rd, that organization has been paid $1.2 million, and yet there has been zero job placements. So will this Liberal government end their wasteful inflationary spending so people can put food on their table and heat their homes?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I thank the member opposite for the question, for her advocacy, her genuine advocacy on behalf of small businesses. One thing that people learned in her part of the country and right around the country is that ensuring businesses adopt to online commerce is critical to not just their survival, but their success going forward. That's why we launched a $4 billion Canada Digital Adoption Program. That's why we are investing in ensuring that small and medium-sized businesses can ensure to do commerce online. That is the way of securing their future. That is what we'll continue to invest in on this side of the House, in ensuring those monies reach those businesses.
The Honourable Member for Colonial Lake Country.
Well, Madam Speaker, this government continues to roll out programs with lack of controls. And we saw this recently from the Auditor General's report, where more than $32 billion went to people that weren't applicable for programs or need to be investigated. And this was due to lack of controls on pandemic programs. We know that the Governor of the Bank of Canada said that inflation is homegrown. We know that the Parliamentary Budget Officer said that hundreds of billions of dollars went out the door during the pandemic, not for pandemic programs. So again, will this government stop their inflationary, wasteful spending so people can put food on their table and heat their homes?
Parliamentary Secretary.
When the pandemic hit, we acted quickly to get recovery benefits into people's bank accounts without delay. To achieve that goal, we planned to verify eligibility in the back end after the fact. This approach kept workers attached to their jobs and positioned our economy to come roaring back, which it did. The Auditor General's report found that our individual support programs achieved their intended goals of getting money to Canadians quickly, allowing Canadians to stay home safely and avoid severe social and economic consequences. Madam Speaker, the Auditor General also noted that lower-income workers and groups most impacted by the pandemic were able to benefit from these programs. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Canadians were advised by the Deputy Prime Minister that they should cut their Disney Plus accounts in order to help them make ends meet. Meanwhile, this government has no problem spending $6,000 on a single hotel night, or $54 million on a failed arrive scam app, or more recently, $32 billion with a B, billion dollars on altogether illegitimate or suspicious funding with regards to COVID. And the worst part is that Canadians are actually on the hook for all this spending. Wow. Canadians, the Canadian people who work incredibly hard. So when will the Liberals show them some respect and stop their wasteful spending?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, when the pandemic hit, our government acted quickly to ensure that Canadians had the support they needed to get by. We were clear from the outset that we would do post-payment verifications in order to get money out the door quickly when it was needed, while also ensuring support went to eligible individuals. This work is ongoing in a responsible and compassionate manner, and we were also clear that fraud would not be tolerated and that individuals who made good faith mistakes would not face penalties. Madam Speaker, we are taking a responsible approach to ensure a fair process. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
This is the problem with these Liberals. They make excuse after excuse after excuse for spending a whole lot of money to accomplish a whole lot of nothing. And at the end of the day, it's Canadians who pay the bill. The cost of living is going up. Meanwhile, this government has no problem spending. Canadians are facing a 40-year record high with regard to inflation. Grocery prices have skyrocketed. 20% of Canadians are forced to skip meals. Meanwhile, those across the way continue to chat with one another and maybe even laugh in mockery. 20% of Canadians are forced to skip meals. 1.5 million Canadians are going to a food bank.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, the policies and programs that we put in place helped Canadians weather the storm of the pandemic, and that was incredibly important, and we would do it again if we had to, Madam Speaker. But I would also like to point out that the investments that we made in Canadians during the pandemic also resulted in our economy rebounding much more quickly and much more strongly than other countries around the world. Madam Speaker, we made responsible choices at a time of emergency in this country, and the result is that the Canadian economy is doing better for it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Winter is already a hard time for so many Canadian families, and this year is going to be especially tough with rising interest rates and inflation. Heating costs are expected to double this winter, which will leave more families making a hard choice between heating and eating. The carbon tax isn't working. It is a tax plan that is driving up the cost of everything from gas to groceries. So my question is simple. Will the Liberals stop forcing their failed carbon tax on Canadian families?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, again, Madam Speaker, we're focused like a laser beam on affordability, and we had rental supports, dental supports, and other affordability measures that the Conservatives just voted against, and that's unfortunate, Madam Speaker. The honourable members from the prairies like me, and there's good news coming to the prairies, Madam Speaker. In your province of Alberta and Saskatchewan, $1,500 in the climate action rebate. Those payments are going to be coming quarterly, Madam Speaker. That's going to help with affordability. That is going to help with cash flow. And, Madam Speaker, that's going to help reduce pollution and drive innovation.
Member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. But unfortunately, that's absolutely cold comfort for families that are struggling right now to keep the heat on in their homes. More Alberta families are going to be paying in carbon tax than what they'll receive back. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has made that exceptionally clear. And 1.5 million Canadians visited a food bank in one single month. Just a couple days ago, a poll came out saying that 53% of Canadians are fearful about feeding their family. This isn't a laughing matter, and it's not something to just spend away. Inflation is eating up those costs. When will they axe their failed carbon?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, listening to the Conservatives on the other side, you know, the words climate change just never parse their lips. And that's not surprising, Madam Speaker, because for 10 long years they did absolutely nothing on climate change. Madam Speaker, we are building the new economy, and while Conservatives want to make pollution free again, we're looking to the future. They're stuck in the past. Mr. Speaker, we're doing something about climate change and affordability.